Kotkaniemi tries to center that one. He will. Svechnikov, Natchez on it, they'll score! Yes, Barry Kotkaniemi with the redirect. Svechnikov, Natchez, and Kotkaniemi gets Carolina on the board. It's 1-0 Hurricanes. Atkinson almost gave it away to the man with the juice, Natchez. Now Natchez keeps it in. He's got Gostisbehere with him. Across, shoots, scores! Game over! Shane Gostisbehere ends it for Carolina in overtime. 2-1.
And welcome to the Canes Corner podcast for the last preseason time at Lenovo Center. I am Adam Gold. Thank you, Shane Gostisbehere, for sparing us an overtime shootout and keeping us here longer than we had to be. Although I will say that third period, that was snappy. That was a snappy third period. I looked at the clock and we were about to start the period, and it was already after 9 o'clock. And I thought, man, we're going to be here a long time. Turned out, played a quick third, got through overtime quickly, thanks to Natchez to Gostisbehere. And there we are. And it's earlier than 10:30. And we're live here on the Canes Corner podcast or prodcast, whatever floats your boat. And we're brought to you by the Aluminum Company of North Carolina. If it's for the exterior of your home, you can find it at the Aluminum Company of North Carolina on Hamlin Road in Durham. No place like it. Sammy Hanna and his crew do a fantastic job. You should check them out for all of your exterior home improvement needs. All right, we're going to talk about 3 or 4 different things tonight. We're going to talk about goaltending. We're going to talk about young players. We're going to talk about roster decisions. And we're going to talk about special teams. And I know the Hurricanes didn't score a power play goal. They had a couple against Florida a few nights ago, actually a week ago tonight. But for the most part, Hurricanes have not been great on the power play. But I actually think that their issues are incredibly solvable without any major personnel issues or changes anyway. And I thought there were some good moments on the power play tonight. Once again, tomorrow, last preseason game, we will have a Canes Corner podcast, obviously, because the game is at 5:00. It'll come to you a little bit earlier. You might be bothered with college football. Shame on you. It'll be the end of the preseason, and I will give you what I believe will be my definitive roster choices that you have been waiting on ever since never. All right, I'm going to start with every great team you start in goal. That's where I am going to begin tonight. So Pyotr Kochetkov has now played a little bit more than 120 minutes, and I have liked, or scratch that, loved a little bit more than 120 of them. The goal he allowed tonight ain't on him. The goal he allowed in game 1, that game to Tampa, down in Tampa to start the preseason, I didn't like the way he played it, but I also don't think that he had a chance on it because of the screen in front. I just didn't like that he looked like he was drifting. But I think that was probably the only shaky moment at all for Kochetkov in the preseason. He's not going to play tomorrow. I don't even think he boards the plane tomorrow. I can't imagine him going. I would imagine we'll see Freddie Anderson and either Yanni Peretz or Ruslan Kazayev, be the backup. But I think we'll see Freddie go the whole route unless Rod wants to give somebody else a period or so. But Kochetkov's been dynamite. And I know Anderson has also played well in his one start, which was here against Florida. But that start came against really nobody. The Panthers really didn't have a representative team. But the 2 games that Kochetkov has played, again, Tampa didn't dress their A team. They dressed a little bit of a better lineup tonight than they did, what was it, a week ago Tuesday. But I thought the chances that they created tonight were really good. I mean, expected goals in all situations for Tampa was 3, just under 3. And they scored 1. And the 1 was a 3-on-1 opportunity that was created by Dmitry Orlov, a bad pinch and a physical mistake. We'll get more to Orlov in a second, but I think Kochetkov was excellent tonight. And he made some really, really big stops. So to me, all signs point to a week from today when the Hurricanes skate out onto the ice. If it's me, number 52 leads them out. I want to see Kochetkov start the opener. Only thing that gets in the way, and I'm assuming that tomorrow night, Freddie Anderson will play well, because I assume he's going to play. You got to give him more than one start in the preseason. The only thing that gets in the way is if Rod just wants to throw a bone to the veteran, but I think this team needs to have Kochetkov look, he's not going to play 55 games. But if this split is between, Kochetkov between 40, let's say 45 starts for Kochetkov, 35 for Anderson, and then 2 for somebody not named either of them based on health issues. Well, I assume that would be Spencer Martin, who, by the way, cleared waivers the other day and will be able to be sent to Chicago. I know there was some worry that why are they waiving Spencer Martin? Because they were always going to send him to Chicago. He's got an NHL contract. And because he's played in the NHL a bunch anyway, he would have to clear waivers even if he had a 2-way deal, but he has a 1-way deal. So in order for the Hurricanes to send him back to the American Hockey League, he was always going to have to clear waivers. Was it risky? Yeah, but the Hurricanes did it before the preseason ended for everybody and before teams, decided, do we need a goalie? And honestly, I think Carolina sort of protects themselves by having him on an NHL deal. So Spencer Martin makes $775. I assume that's the number, regardless if he's in the minor leagues or if he's at the NHL level. Canes have to pay him. He won't count against the cap in the minor leagues, but Canes still have to pay him. That's actual American currency going out the door to Spencer Martin. So I think if it were me, I'd be starting Kochetkov, but we'll have to wait and see how Freddie Anderson plays tomorrow, and then Rod Brindamore will have some decisions to make. But I loved the movement. I loved the controlled movement. I loved the way Kochetkov read the play today. I thought was really important. He went behind the net decisively. There was one mistake that I remember anyway. One mistake with the puck where he tried to clear it through the center of the ice, which is never a good thing. But the interception happened right at the blue line, and Kochetkov got back into his net without any trouble. And I actually don't even think a shot got on frame. So he got away with it. But I thought there was so much to like about what we saw from Pyotr Kochetkov today. All right. I'm going to start with Scott Morrow, because I thought, for me, Morrow played like he belonged. Now, he's not going to make the roster. Scott Morrow's not in your top 6. He's not going to be a 7th defenseman. He's going to go to the American Hockey League and play a ton. Scott Morrow is very much the future on the right side. Whether or not that means he takes over for Brent Burns next year, not saying he would, but Brent Burns probably isn't going to be back next year. So, and Scott Morrow will be part of the mix on the right side. I really liked what I saw from him today. And if you go back to the end of last year, he played the last 2 games. I thought game 81, I thought he was really good. And I thought 82, he was not really good. But hey, He's young. He's learning. He's just turning pro. I think he's going to be a very good player. He is a top 4 caliber defenseman, and he will be here maybe due to injury this year, but I think by next year you could see Scott Morrow with a very significant role on the blue line for this team. We know Alexander Nikishin will be here next year. Heck, Nikishin might be here before the end of this season, depending on what happens with his team in the KHL. Of course, he's off to a good start, and I think the team is off to a good start. And shouts to Tony DeAngelo and Yevgeny Kuznetsov for playing on that same team. But I think Morrow played really well today. And here's why I know that is because his defensive partner tonight didn't. Morrow had a lot of opportunity to cover for Dmitry Orlov. Let me pause here for 1 second. I thought Orlov was exceptionally good in the first period. I do. I watched Orlov Wednesday, and he was a disaster Wednesday, I thought. I mean, an absolute mess with the puck, decision-making, all of that. And in the first period tonight, I thought Orlov was great. To me, because I try to write down, all right, who are the best 3 players in this period? I try to do that each period. It kind of helps me when I do 3 stars. And for my money, the 3 best players in the first period were Kochetkov, Orlov, and I loved Seth Jarvis in the first period. But in the second and third, Orlov would be the opposite of what he was in the first. I don't even know. I couldn't even call it a pinch. I don't know what it was. His wandering and his attempt to play the puck when he missed created the 3-on-1 that Anthony Cirelli scored on to equalize at a goal apiece. In the third period, late, he made a similar attempt to play the puck and missed it, and it created the 2-on-1 that Kochetkov, I don't believe he actually made a save there, but bothered the shooter enough to have the shot go wide or high over the net. It's hard to tell, and I didn't see a replay on it. But it was a mess from number 7 tonight. It's pretty clear that in my conversations with Rod Brindamore, when he talked about how they determine who's going to be in the lineup for a lot of these preseason games, he made a point to say that there were certain players who were not in tip-top shape. He never said that Dmitry Orlov was one of those players. But if I could submit to you evidence, Your Honor, when a veteran player plays 4 of your first 5 preseason games, that's for a reason. I'm fairly certain that Rod was referring to Dmitry Orlov because he has done it in another way, in another conversation I've had about last year, that maybe Orlov didn't show up in exactly the best shape you've ever seen. Not that he's fat or anything like that, but these guys, for the most part, the Hurricanes, when they show up to camp, they are ready to go. Other players have to kind of work their way into the season. Maybe that contributed to about 2.5 to 3 months of Orlov not playing all that well. Now, to Orlov's credit, second half of the year and into the playoffs, he was excellent. So I am not bashing the player. Right now, he looks like the player we saw at the beginning of last year. Hopefully, it will not take 2.5 to 3 months for Orlov to find his game. Because even though Shane Gostisbehere and Sean Walker, a tandem I think a lot of you are going to like a lot, even though those 2 guys are technically the replacement for Brady Shea and Brett Pesce. Gostisbehere and Walker brought in as free agents as Shea and Pesce leave via the same route. The actual replacement for 76 and 22 is 7-5. Because Orlov and Chatfield are going to assume the lion's share of those available minutes. Not that they didn't play a lot last year, because they did, and as the season wore on, they played more in the postseason. If you want to go and look it up, you can, but I've done this, and Orlov and Chatfield was Carolina's best defensive pairing in the postseason. They just were. And they did not get sheltered in terms of matchups. Rod Brindamore kept throwing them out there because he needed them, because Orlov was playing at a very high level, and Chatfield was as well. I assume they'll get back to that. But it was not vintage Dmitry Orlov tonight. The first period, again, I thought he was outstanding in the first period. I thought, and I talked to Walt Ruff about it, he thought that Orlov should have shot the puck. I thought he made a great play and a great pass to Andrei Svechnikov. Haven't seen a replay of that. I don't know if there was if a defenseman bothered him, but it looked to me like that should have been a goal. I wrote down SBG. Should have been a goal. I guess I should go SBAG. SBAG. Should have been a goal. But it was not. But I thought a great play by Orlov. And I thought Dmitry played well on all ends, all zones in the first period. And maybe he just got gassed. Maybe he was tired after one. Again, as I mentioned, I think he's working his way into shape. But Scott Morrow played well as his partner tonight and was hung out to dry a couple of times. The 3-on-1 that Cirelli scored, Morrow couldn't stop. He was left alone on the 2-on-1 late. And again, he didn't stop it, but he was put in a tough situation. But I've been impressed with Scott Morrow. All right. Before we get to the other young player I want to talk about, real quick to special teams. Penalty kill looks great. I did not think Tampa might have had one really good power play look. One. I was 100% on board with Carolina's penalty killing, and I will actually look it up here because I think it's worth looking up. The Panthers on the power play had one scoring chance that came back in the first period. That was it. I mean, it was a great scoring chance, but it was just one. Carolina actually had a couple of shorthanded looks against Tampa over there, however many power plays it was. I believe it was 4 power plays for the Lightning today. The Canes penalty killing was great. I thought the Canes penalty killing against Nashville was great. Probably, it was the best part of their game, honestly, against the Predators on Wednesday night. So that to me should excite you, because they did it tonight without Chatfield. Orlov was out there, but Morrow killed some penalties. Shane Gostisbehere and Sean Walker did, and obviously Slavin and Burns. But the forwards also did a pretty good job. The high danger scoring chance was when Seth Jarvis kind of fumbled the puck, and Mitchell Chafee pounced on it and had a great scoring opportunity, really below the hash marks, that Kochetkov was able to handle early on in the game. So the penalty kill was good. The power play obviously lacked, but I think Carolina's biggest problem so far in the power play has been trying to be a little too cute, but also not really being in sync with who they are and where they're going to be. I didn't think Gostisbehere was awesome at the top of the umbrella on the power play. And it may be with Aho, Svechnikov, and Gostisbehere. Maybe that's one too many lefties. Look, I'm not saying that Brent Burns is going to assume that role or Sean Walker is going to assume that role, but I do think it might not hurt to get another righty out there, although you've got Natchez and you've got Seth Jarvis. Also, for one power play, you had Jackson Blake out there. Get back to him in a second. But I thought the power play, especially as the game wore on, started to create a few more opportunities, but it really wasn't awesome throughout the game. I think, again, Carolina was probably better late second period, whether it was Natchez or I think Walker had a couple of good looks. So the power play is going to get better, but I think it's really more about precision and understanding where each other is during the man advantage. So for the most part, it wasn't good, but I'm not alarmed by it at all. All right. Now I want to get to Jackson Blake. So I'll put it in percentages. At the beginning of training camp, everybody's optimistic, man. The young guys are this, the young guys are that. Bradley Nadeau, Felix Ungersorum, yeah, they're great. Oh, Jackson Blake, he's a really heady player, and he can do a lot of different things, and he's very talented, great hands, vision, smarts, hockey IQ, Hobie Baker Award finalist. Macklin Celebrini was always going to win that, but, Blake had 60 points in 40 games at the University of North Dakota. He's a big-time offensive producer. He's not a huge player, 5'10", about $180, $185. But I thought he was impressive tonight. So before training camp started, I gave it maybe I said 50-50 chance any young player makes the roster. And that was probably being way too generous. And I think as we got closer to where we are now, I had dropped that to about 25%. Based on what I saw on Wednesday, and Blake played on Wednesday, based on what I saw on Wednesday, I'd really drop that to about 10%. And when I saw the lineup tonight, and Blake was back in it, and then Blake went out and played the way he did, and if you were looking for offensive danger, didn't really get it tonight. What you did get, I thought, was, for the most part, it wasn't like it was all perfect, because it's not ever going to be all perfect. I thought you saw a responsible player away from the puck tonight. I do. Late second period, nullifies icing and draws a penalty. Carolina nearly scored with Tampa in the box before the end of the period. They had two really good chances, and they just didn't go. But hustling to nullify icing and drawing the penalty, that leaves an impression on the head coach. Late third period. It's about a minute, maybe a little bit more than a minute left. Well, here comes Anthony Cirelli. And look who's back-checking. Look who number 53, back-checking. I don't believe a number 53 has ever back-checked for the Carolina Hurricanes. People will know what I'm talking about. But Jackson Blake was in good position, and it was Anthony Cirelli, arguably Tampa's best player on the ice in this game. And I think, again, leaves an impression on the head coach. He took a penalty, nullified Carolina's own power play. Personally, I think it was a little bit more circumstance than anything else. Did get a stick on the gloves of I forget who it was for Tampa. And he actually knocked one of the gloves off. He goes to the penalty box and nullifies a Carolina power play. And you don't want to see that, but I think he did a lot of good things away from the puck tonight, and I think the head coach notices. So my guess is he'll be in the lineup tomorrow. And he'll get one more shot, and considering I expect Brendan Lemieux to play and Eric Robinson to play, I wouldn't be shocked if Blake played with Jack Drury again, let's say a line of Robinson, Drury, and Blake. If we see that line on the ice tomorrow night in Tampa, which we may, I think we're 50-50 that Jackson Blake is in the lineup a week from tonight. I kid you not. The reason for that is that Rod knows they're going to need a little bit more scoring. And if you have, and this is no disrespect at all to Lemieux or Jost or Robinson, and I think Robinson has a chance to get that spot because of his size. Although that could be Lemieux as well. If I was ranking it, I would say Robinson, Lemieux, Jost, left side, if Jackson Blake can make the roster. Because you've got two scoring lines, you've got the stall line. That fourth line isn't necessarily going to be a checking line. Now it may. Rod may say, you know what? I don't want Jackson Blake here playing 9.5 minutes a night. I want him playing 19.5 minutes a night in Chicago. That would be a fine decision. But I'm telling you, if we see Robinson, Drury, Blake tomorrow in Nashville, then I think it's 50-50 that Jackson Blake makes the team. What Rod needed to see was somebody who is responsible away from the puck. So, as we say in European football, out of possession. And I think Blake showed that he could handle that. There's going to be mistakes. He was certainly culpable on the second Florida goal the second Nashville goal on Wednesday. He and Robinson, by the way, and Orlov combined to botch that whole play. But we have seen so much more good than not good with Jackson Blake. And again, he's got offensive upside, a lot of it. And what I think is if you pair him with Drury and a Robinson or a Lemieux or a Jost on the fourth line, you have the potential to see some offense. Now, I think there is also a scenario where we see a different look in terms of combinations at the start of the season, but we'll get into those when we really see the roster. So I don't want to get ahead of ourselves here because right now, for the most part, the line seems static. Roslovic with Aho and Jarvis, Kokaniemi centering Svechnikov and Natchez. That line got better as the game wore on. I want to give Kokaniemi some credit. I thought in the 3 games that he has played. Actually, I'm not sure the first one wasn't his best one, but I think he has been good in all 3 games. So Drury has been very good in the 3 he has played as well. But it was good for Kokaniemi to play well again tonight because, as I've said many, 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 many times, I think the preseason was really going to determine how much runway Rod Brindamore allowed Kokaniemi. He's got to get off to a good start. It doesn't only have to be on the score sheet, right? I mean, he scored a goal tonight, and he was in the right place at the right time, side of the net. Natchez's shot attempt, I don't think he broke his stick, but he didn't get it clean. It just drifted left to the net, and Kokaniemi was there, and he kind of figured out a way to get it through the pads of Vasilevsky. That made it 1-0. But I've liked the way Kokaniemi has played. He doesn't have to be a big point producer. It's not licensed to not score. Like, you don't get paid to not put points on the score sheet. But if he's physical, if he wins faceoffs, if he's defensively responsible, and it just basically allows Natchez and Svechnikov to do their thing, then I don't realize that's a low bar, but I think Kokaniemi can maintain that spot. Now, I personally think Carolina needs an upgrade at 2C, whether it's Kokaniemi or Drury, if they want to be a true contender for winning it all this year, unless Kotkaniemi becomes a 60-point guy. I think ultimately that's where Carolina falls short. I said it last year. Kuznetsov never materialized into that number 2. He had good moments in the playoffs, but he really never established himself as a number 2C, and that's in large part why he's in the KHL. All right, that'll do it for us here. But I again, curious what's going to happen with the roster for tomorrow night's game. And if we see Robinson, Drury, and Blake, or Drury and Blake, it doesn't even matter who's playing on the left side. If we see Drury and Blake, I think for those of you holding Jackson Blake tickets, he could be in the lineup in the opener. And now he's not going to be here and be a healthy extra. If he's here, he plays. So, and again, if he plays tomorrow with Jack, then when we come on after the game, we can then discuss, all right, here's how we think it will look if Jackson Blake stays with the team. Anyway, Hurricanes are now 9-1-0 under Rod Brindamore in the preseason all-time against Tampa. I mean, that's just weird. And they are 3-1-1 in this preseason. For what it's worth, they've guaranteed themselves a preseason playoff spot. I don't think they're going to win the preseason President's Trophy, but they have guaranteed themselves a preseason playoff spot. All right, thank you very much to Shane Gostisbehere for scoring a goal in overtime.
Atkinson almost gave it away to the man with the juice, Natchez. Now Natchez keeps it in. He's got Gostisbehere with him. Across, shoots, scores! Game over!
There you go.
Shane Gostisbehere ends it for Carolina in overtime. 2-1.
Thank you. We didn't need any more overtime. We didn't need the shootout. Tomorrow, after the Canes wrap up the preseason in Nashville against the Predators, we'll run it all back. We'll take stock of where we are with 6 days to go before the start of the regular season. We're brought to you by the Aluminum Company of North Carolina. If it's for the exterior of your home, find it at the Aluminum Company of North Carolina on Hamlin Road in Durham. No place like it. Sammy Hanner's crew do a great job inviting you to rate, review, subscribe, like, share, tell your friends, leave us some comments, do what you like. Appreciate it. This has been the Canes Corner podcast. I am Adam Gold. We will see everyone tomorrow night after the Canes wrap up the preseason against the Preds. Good night.